21 miles. That is the width of the Strait of Hormuz at its narrowest point. And right now, it is closed. Not partially, not temporarily, shut. The phones are ringing in London, in Washington, in Tehran. Warships are being discussed, sanctions are being tightened, and somewhere, a price board is flipping. You don't see the strait, you see the number at the pump. You see the delay on your tracking app. You feel it in your budget, in your schedule, in the quiet panic of a system that runs on movement and has just stopped moving. This is not a geopolitical abstraction. This is a chain reaction. And depending on where you sit in that chain, your life looks completely different. It starts at the street level. You are 26. You work the overnight shift at a distribution depot just outside Phoenix. Your job used to be simple. Check manifests, route trucks, keep the fuel flowing to the regional stations. Now your dashboard is bleeding red. 3 suppliers have paused deliveries. 2 have triggered force majeure clauses. The diesel price you locked in last month is gone. The new rate is 40% higher. Your manager tells you to hold the line. You tell the drivers to wait. You watch the line of idling tankers stretch past the gate. You know what happens when those tanks run dry. The local station runs out. The hospital generators switch over. The delivery routes collapse. You make $16 an hour. You drive a used sedan with a cracked windshield. You are not thinking about maritime law or naval blockades. You are thinking about how to explain to your boss that the math doesn't work anymore. You are the first point of friction. You are also the most exposed. Move up the chain. You are 34. You run logistics for a mid-sized refinery on the Gulf Coast. You haven't slept in 30 hours. Your facility processes crude from 3 continents. 2 of those supply lines just vanished. You are running on domestic heavy sour, which your crackers weren't optimized for. Margins are compressing. Your phone won't stop. Corporate wants throughput maintained. The state energy office wants projections. Your team is running on caffeine and adrenaline. You pull up the inventory models. If the strait stays shut for another 20 days, you have to curtail production by 30%. That means furloughs. 240 workers. You've signed their paychecks for 6 years. You know their names. You know which ones have kids in college, which ones are caring for aging parents. You stare at the spreadsheet. The numbers are clean. The human cost is not. You adjust the flow rates. You send the memo. You feel the weight of every decimal point. This is no longer about optimization. This is about triage. Cross the ocean. You are 41. You sit in a glass tower in London. Your screen is a mosaic of live charts, freight indices, and derivatives pricing. Crude just breached $160 a barrel, highest in over a decade. You manage a book of energy futures worth $800 million. Your analysts are shouting over the noise of the trading floor. Iranian mining reports are confirmed. US Fifth Fleet is mobilizing. Saudi spare capacity is being questioned. You don't see ships. You see volatility. You see basis spreads widening. You see an opportunity to reposition the portfolio before the Asian markets open. You execute a series of hedges. You lock in gains that will cover your team's annual bonus in a single session. You are not cruel. You are calibrated. You don't think about the driver in Phoenix or the refinery manager in Texas. You think about liquidity, contango, and risk-adjusted returns. To you, this crisis is a pressure test, and pressure, in your world, is just another word for profit. You close the trade. You take a sip of cold coffee. The market keeps moving. Now step into the room where the maps are drawn. You are 52. You sit at a polished table in Vienna. The air is thick with quiet tension. 11 energy ministers. 3 intelligence liaisons. 1 Secretary-General holding a gavel that feels heavier than it looks. The strait closure has triggered emergency protocols. Iran's statement is uncompromising. The UK and US are pushing for a naval corridor. OPEC members are split between those who want to flood the market with spare capacity and those who fear triggering a wider conflict. You have the production data in front of you. If you authorize an emergency output increase, you stabilize prices for 90 days. But you also signal weakness to Tehran. You risk fragmenting the coalition. If you hold the line, prices spike. Inflation accelerates. Political unrest spreads through consuming nations. You've spent 25 years in energy diplomacy. You know that every decision here is a trade-off between stability and sovereignty. You look around the table. Everyone is waiting. You clear your throat. You propose a phased release. It satisfies no one completely. It prevents total collapse. That is the job. You are not here to be right. You are here to keep the machine from seizing. Finally, you reach the top of the chain. You are 60. You sit in a secure briefing room with encrypted lines and satellite feeds. The president has just finished a call with London and Ottawa. The consensus is clear. The blockade cannot hold. But the options are narrow. Military escort risks direct engagement. Diplomatic negotiation looks like concession. Strategic reserve release is a bandage, not a cure. The Joint Chiefs lay out the threat assessment: 200 fast attack craft, coastal defense missiles, naval mines confirmed in the primary shipping lane. If you authorize a strike, you might clear the corridor. Or you might turn a choke point into a war zone. You think about the price at the pump. You think about the supply chains fracturing. You think about the analysts, the ministers, the traders, the workers, all of them waiting for a signal. All of them exposed to a decision you haven't made yet. You pick up the secure phone. You dial the number that connects you to the commanders in the Gulf. You don't feel powerful. You feel responsible. There is a difference. You give the order to prepare the escort fleet. You add a caveat. Rules of engagement remain defensive until further notice. You hang up. The room exhales. The markets will react in 6 hours. The ships will move in 12. The strait will not open tomorrow. But the pressure has shifted. This is how the system works. It is not a single point of failure. It is a cascade. 21 miles of water. 18 million barrels a day. 5 levels of consequence. You are somewhere in that chain. Maybe you are watching the news. Maybe you are checking your bank account. Maybe you are wondering who is actually in control. The answer is both simple and uncomfortable. No one is driving. Everyone is reacting. The crisis is not in the water. It is in the architecture. Fragile, interconnected, held together by spreadsheets, signals, and silent compromises. The strait will reopen, or it won't. But the pattern will repeat, because this is how modern power operates. Not with speeches, with logistics, not with declarations, with decimals. Check your fuel gauge, check your shipping notifications, check the headlines. That is your level, and it is higher than you think.